Tim and I shot the footage for Restrepo in 07-08. The country was fully engaged in two wars, and we wanted to make a film that allowed audiences to go into a dark room for 90 minutes and, in some ways, experience combat. It's sort of undiluted with interviews with generals. There's no musical score. There's no narration. Korengal is different. It's an attempt to sort of understand the experience of combat and how it affects young men. And it affects them in very good ways and very bad ways. And it really tries to unpack that. There is a musical score. We use some news footage. What I'm really trying to do is help soldiers understand and to validate the experience they had, and by extension, civilians would understand it better as well.
You'd hear the enemy just going crazy trying to figure out where we were.
We're definitely bait.
Yeah, it's frightening.
Until you hear the snap of a bullet go by your head, there's nothing else like it.
I mean, it's clear we have to pull out of Afghanistan at some point. It's better for us, and I think in some ways it's better for the Afghans. The downside of pulling out is that if we pull out too quickly, the whole house of cards risks collapsing, which would be a terrible thing for Afghanistan and for the world. So here's a sort of compromise of 9,800 troops for a couple of years, not really conducting combat operations, and then a complete withdrawal in 2016. I think it's a pretty good compromise, and I'm hoping it'll work. Bergdahl had to be brought back home. I know there's some controversy about how he wound up being taken captive in the first place. I don't think that's really relevant. He was an enormous liability for the U.S. If the Taliban had failed to trade him for prisoners or for anything, very possibly they would have produced some ghastly beheading video with an American soldier. And that is an enormous coup for the jihadis, all over the world. And there's real damage to the U.S. and to the world if that happens. And so whatever people think personally of Bergdahl and his choices or whatever, that can get sorted out later. But in terms of U.S. interests, I think it was absolutely vital